Welcome back to Tempo, the brand new podcast brought to you by myself and VanillaSoft. Now, we're having a bit of fun today. I've got one of my long-term friends on the studio with me. I'll spare you the long introduction. His name's Matt Reuter. I've known him probably 5-6 years. He's been when did I know you, Matt? Were you in the mailroom? Was it that, or were you more of a BDO
Oh,
at that point?
yeah, I was an SDR pretty much in the mailroom. I had just started. I think I was like maybe eight or 9 months in. So it's
That
been a while.
early, was it? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. You need to tell me how to match your career pace then. My God. Okay, so what are you now? What's your job now?
So I'm a senior director of sales development at RealPage. So I've got 30 SDRs in seat right now, spread across four different groups. So I've got the managers, and then I've got a select group. I think there's seven of them that are specialized on certain products of ours that are high priority products for us this year. That I manage them as well.
Cool. All right. A lot of people, a lot of humans, a lot of problems, a lot of numbers, I imagine. So, what I'd like to do for 20 minutes or so, something like that, we'll just go through what's your day look like? What's your week look like? What's your month look like? How do you deal with all the people? What routines do you have? What problems come up? What things happen? What things don't happen? I know you've had two or three companies since I've known you. You've not jumped around a lot, but how are they different in the sort of the ways that you've dealt with those same things across? And I think there'll be some different seniority levels to go through with each of them. Then I'm going to surprise you with something you don't know about yet, and then we'll have some quick fires at the end. Sound good?
Yeah, works for me.
Cool. All right. So what do you do day by day? Tell me the average day in your life, apart from I know you got some kids to deal with, and they're quite young, so that's first. And then
Yeah,
when you start work, what happens?
yeah. My typical day is structured ahead of time, right? So I'm in meetings pretty much all day. I've got a couple spots here and there that I have set aside to do some actual work, but it's full of trainings and coaching sessions and one-on-ones and product team meetings and marketing meetings and just a bunch of different meetings, sales operations. I mean, just all the different groups that we touch and work with during the day. So I'm watching both my specific team's performance as well as the overall broader group's performance, and then I'm tracking it from a daily, obviously monthly, quarterly, yearly perspective, and just making sure that we're trucking along the way that we should be.
Right. So quite a lot of different things, and some of them you can't control. Like if a product changes, something like that, that's kind of mandatory. You need to know what it is so that then you talk about it appropriately. So those things you can't control. They may not be all the time. Similar for marketing, you probably just need to be there for hearing stuff occasionally. Say something happens, like let's make something up. A rep starts to perform below par, something like that. You can't control that, but you do need to allocate time and get on with sorting that out. How difficult is that for you with all of those things going on? Particularly with the amount of people, you can't just drop everyone. You gotta delicately place. You're doing incremental changes in how much time you spend with each person.
Yeah. That's a tough one, and it's tough because there's really two groups of people I think that struggle in these types of roles. There are the reps in which the activity is there, but the performance isn't. Those are the tricky ones. That's a coaching issue in my mind. And then there's the reps where the activity is not there and the performance is not there, and those are the easier ones to just kind of performance manage out. But the ones where where they're trying and they're really putting in the effort, they really want to be a part of it and really want to be well. I mean, we have to decide at the end of the day, is this something that they're ultimately going to be good at? Is this something that's going to be fulfilling to them? Is this a are these challenges that they're facing right now going to get better? Are they able to get better? Is this a coachable behavior, or is this just something that they just don't have that's not clicking? And that's what you've got to that's what's going to shape the coaching and the strategy and how we get that person back on track. But I would say I spend a lot of time trying to evaluate that, and by the time it comes to that point, I've got a pretty good idea on just from experience of running these types of sales teams. Like, I've got a pretty good idea on who's going to make it, who's going to struggle, and then I'm the kind of leader that has a very candid conversation with that person, and I give a very straightforward and you know um, direct feedback on this is going to be the uphill battle that you're going to be faced with, and how you're going to have to overcome what you're going to have to overcome to make it happen. And then we both go down that path of, is it worth the time, and is this what we ultimately want to do?
All right, okay. So you've kind of got to see it coming best you can. When you've got to coach them, how much of that is given to you? Is it all your own, you know, notepad stuff, or have you collected things over time? Is there a team that creates the call recording or the call calling training playbook, or how much have you got available to you? How much do you make?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a collection of stuff that I've used over the years, depending on what I think the problem is. If it's just basic what you're saying on the phone and how you're saying it, I think that's just going to be a lot more role play and a lot more practicing and going through things. But if it's more of an aptitude thing, that can be a little more difficult to train. And we have different groups within our organization that can help depending on the area. And I have different, I think the greatest leader is as good as their Rolodex of people that they can tap to help delegate things to, and have expertise in different areas. So, if it's a process thing, I have people I can touch to. Right? If it's a product thing, I have people I can send them to. So I think it kind of depends on what the issue is and what the overall thing we're trying to accomplish is, and then that dictates which path we go down.
Right, okay. I'm getting it now. So, how many did you say? 30? Team of 30 you have?
Yeah, 30 right now. Hmm.
Right. So, are you touching base with all 30, or are you picking up with the managers? So, I'm working at how many one to ones you squeeze into your week a month.
Yeah. Well, so I have 7 direct SDRs that report to me, and then I have 3 managers. So I have about 10 one-on-ones every single week. But then I also try to talk to everybody in my organization once a quarter. So I just finished kind of my first round. Um, I started in December, just finished in January of my extended kind of skip level type one-on-ones with the team. And so I try to talk to everybody at least once a quarter, but based on the way my schedule breaks out, it's about 12 to 13 a week is about all I can manage from a one-on-one perspective.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's too many people that you couldn't do more often. I don't know what you talk about if you did. And then if you did it less often, then I think you'd be filling gaps back in your time with the things that you would be doing anyway. You'd be doing more coaching, which is what you do on the same call anyway. So that okay, I can see your logic there.
Yeah.
So help me work out what is a fire that can come up sometimes. I would imagine, let's say you're doing a pipeline call or something like that. That could be a place where if the number's down, there's a bit of a problem and those types of things. Maybe a person leaves the team. Those things happen. That's kind of one of those things that applies to everyone. But for you particularly, is there anything that could happen on a more regular basis than for others?
Yeah, one of the things at RealPage that I've had, I mean, it's a great problem to have. I think is we promote a lot of people here. So we've just promoted our 64th person in the last 3
64th.
years. 64 SDRs have been promoted into AE roles,
That's great.
and yeah, it is. So that brings its challenges and it brings its advantages. So, we have a lot of attrition, both positive and negative. And so we're constantly recruiting, and we're constantly training and onboarding folks, and all of that. And so when you promote your top 10% of your team, you have to then go and cultivate and find the next top 10% that's going to backfill that spot. And so you have to inspire leaders as you're losing leaders, which is very difficult to do. And then you also have to, you typically have your best players on your best accounts. And so then you have to find those next players that are going to plug in, and it just, the snowball rolls downhill and it affects everything. And you rebuild it all over again. So we're running through that, once every quarter or two, that where we're just trying to have to constantly backfill and repurpose people. But I think one of the biggest fires that we had to put out last year was we let our recruiting funnel dry up, and then we had a lot of attrition, positive and negative, and then we had to hit the ground, and we actually had to do. I think we ended up doing 200 interviews in from August to November. So across my leadership team and all the different leaders, we had that many interviews. And out of those, we ended up hiring, I think, 17. So there was just a lot of that whole thing. Then when you start including your interviews plus all of your different, one-on-ones and everything else that you have going on, there's just a lot of fires that pop up that you just have to look at which ones are the biggest ones and which are going to cause the most damage. And then we're going to attack those first and then empower others to put out the smaller ones.
Yeah, so I'm getting it's a cyclical problem that it's going to happen again and again. The best thing to do is just get as far ahead of it as you can, but it's very easy to say we'll just be at 120% quota because duh, but it's not quite as easy as that. So then, how many times does that occasionally go wrong? Will it be that the top 10%ers go? Maybe it's every 6 months or something like that, and then the 10% below that take the step up. You give them the speech of now it's your time to shine. They're all good to go, but occasionally they just might not have that little bit, or that account might, for an unforeseen reason, go wrong, something like that. You can't do anything about it, and then all of a sudden, point one has fallen, point two and three and four are going to get the knockback as well. How often does that crop up?
Yeah, it happens periodically. I think we've gotten to the point, definitely in the first couple of years that we started the program at RealPage, that was happening more frequently. Now it's to a point where we're expecting it to happen, and so like even in those times where we have strong performers that are performing, we're highly focused on the group that's coming up. And we send them through different training programs and different things to keep them continually learning and executing. But it's gotten to a point now where we know that we're going to lose people, positive or negative, based on attrition, and we know that we've got to have that bench of people that we're developing constantly. And so it happens less frequently. I won't say that it doesn't happen anymore, but it definitely does. But it does happen less frequently than it used to.
Okay, so open the secret sauce bottle. How do you find your best reps? How do you keep doing this? Because it's one of those. It sounds like you're always doing it, but depends on how many people. But you're like you said, it dries up because you stop doing it for a bit or whatever happened, and then you got a problem. So how are you keeping going on it?
Well, I think it starts with recruiting, and it starts with our interview process. So our interview process is that we have the recruiter um, do the initial phone screens. She's been rocking with us for 3 years, so she knows exactly the type of candidate that we're looking for with experience. So that helps a ton. Then we always have two leaders interview at the same time. So we do a group setting, two leaders with the candidate. We are a hell yes or hell no mentality. And so
Sorry, is
if it's
that like
not
a
a hell
team leader
yes,
or a leader of the group in terms of like
a
a
leader of the
message?
group, one of the managers.
Right.
Yeah, one of the managers. And then if they go well there, we move into another round where we have three different prompts that we send them, and they have to watch the video on the product, and then they have to create a little 1 minute script, mock cold call, so that we can understand how they're able to ingest the material and then deliver it. And then once we've all agreed on their video as being good, then they'll sit down for their final round with me and Matt Buchalski, who's our VP of Sales, for the final interview. And then if they make it all the way through the process, we assume that if they've talked to four people at this point and we're all a yes, then we've got the right candidate. And so it starts with that, and then it starts with our development. So we have a 2-week onboarding program where we're teaching them how to do the job, everything about it. We have one training every single day. So they're training skills trainings Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They have some sort of org-wide training on Thursday. They have call recording sessions on Monday and Fridays, and they're just constantly being fed. We have book clubs. We have a podcast sharing platform where we share podcasts, and we really try to put the learning back into them and just continue their growth and their education. And I think during and through that process, we're able to weed out people that aren't life learners, that aren't trying to, ultimately row in the same direction as the rest of the group. But then it also promotes people to step up and people to see what everyone else is doing and try to keep up. And so I think that helps kind of breed that upward trajectory.
Nice. Okay. So I don't know if you might have a little bit of red tape on this, but I'll ask anyway. It's cool. Are you allowed to say what kind of numbers they're trying to hit? Like not quotas, but are they doing a number of dials a day, number of accounts a day, or that type of thing when they start?
Yeah, I mean, we have RealPage is a very interesting. It's a very interesting company to run these types of teams at because so half my career I did in telecom, selling security and internet, and so everyone and their mom needs that, and so every company out there is a potential prospect. So you can get away with the smile and dial stuff, you can get away with the mass email blast campaigns and all of that, but with RealPage, we're focused on owners and operators of multifamily apartment buildings. And so there's only so many people out there and companies out there that own enough real estate to use our technology. And so we have to be hyper personalized, hyper focused on business problems and business outcomes that we can sell because we don't just have an unlimited amount of customers. So we have the team, we have definitely have lower call metrics and email metrics than probably other industries do, but they're a huge focus is on quality over quantity. And we want them hyper focused on research and understanding why they're positioning a solution to a client and why they think that should be the right way so that we have a good presence when we pick up the phone.
Right. So they're obviously still going to do cold calling. They're obviously still going to do emailing, but it's going to be never burn through the list quickly. It's going to be let's do this tactfully. Let's think it through. What are we going to say? All of those things to quality assure.
Yeah, one of the things that we tell the reps when we give them their accounts is these are your accounts. This is what you have to go make your quote off of. This is it. So if you burn through them, that's on you. You're going to have to figure out what to do with them then, but we don't have any more to give you. So you got to treat them like they're your own, understand, strategize with your account rep to make sure that you guys are on the same page and that you're delivering the right message into the right account at the right time.
Gotcha. Okay. So we talked quite a lot about your team there and what your world is like. What about the team above you? How do you manage up? Who have you got to manage up to? What are they looking for from you?
Yeah, so we support multiple groups within our organization. We've got obviously full cycle sellers. We have solutions specific sellers who are just focused on a product set and product family. My teams cover basically everybody, and I think they're we're constantly teaching reps qualification, teaching them, what's a good deal, what's a bad deal, how to bundle and grow opportunities before just pulling the trigger and setting a meeting. The my managers and myself, like we have weekly and quarter or monthly and quarterly meetings with all of the VPs of the teams that we support, where we're covering metrics, we're covering deals, we're showing deals that are in late stage, and we're helping as we can progress them through. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's my philosophy that the team in front of us, all they want are good deals that get them to club, and they want to look good in front of the clients. And so as long as we can position them and tee them up for one of those two things, like we're going to be good.
So if I interviewed anybody on your team, they probably heard you say that quite a few times.
Yeah, just a few.
All right, just a few. How I know this about you because I've known you for ages, but you've got a signature thing that you do every so often. How coveted is the Hulk Smash prize in your team? And for everyone who doesn't know what the hell that is, what is it?
Yeah. So when I first started leading these types of teams, I worked with under Malachi Threadgill, who was our director of demand gen at Masergy, and he's like, "Hey man, I have this idea of bringing the Hulk Smash. Like, let's get a full size Hulk Smash action figure and then give it to whoever smashes their quota." And so I started doing that, posting on LinkedIn, and started getting some traction, and it was kind of a cool thing. And then when I went over to GTT, I didn't have the Hulk Smash anymore, so I was like, well, I'll do the Thor Hammer, and that's where the Thor Hammer really took off. And so the Thor Hammer is, it's called the RealPage Hammer now, and it is given to the top rep on the team as voted by leadership. So it's not necessarily just quota. It has a lot to do with quota. If somebody absolutely blows their quota out, of course they are in contention of it. But it's also the little things that they do, right? It's have they, have they been helping a lot of other people on board and doing things that, doing all the little stuff that no one sees that, and I ask their peers to recommend them and their leaders recommend them. And then we all sit down and we debated on one of our meetings on who we think is deserving. We kind of build a case around it, and then that person gets it. One of the first things I do when I come into an organization is I add all of the executive leadership and as many people on the sales team into my LinkedIn network as I can. And the goal being, as soon as I get that photo and I post that photo, I blast it to all of my teams and say, everybody throw a like on this. And it gets up to 30, 40, tricks the algorithm. And then everybody at RealPage that logs in sees my post right there, number one, front and center. And so, it's exposure to the CEO, it's exposure to COO, it's exposure all the way up the chain. And so it's become this award that's given out, but it's also a great recognition platform for the reps to show who's risen up through the ranks. And I was reminded just the other day that I haven't given one out since October or November, and so I'm changing that. And you'll see 12 Hammer Awards this year. That's one of my goals, strategic goals for this year. So.
It's smart because as well for you at the same time, much as it's the recognition for them, it's a good thing for a leader to give recognition in a way like that. So that plays positively for you as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I've found that you know it's one of those things. It doesn't come with money. It doesn't come with extra anything. Really, it's just the recognition of doing a good job. And what I found is that it's highly motivating to people to just be recognized as that person that's gone above and beyond. And I used to think when I was early in my career, like, oh, I gotta, can I get $100 gift card or $200 gift card and give them a Beats headphone? It's like they're actually more excited to just take a picture with a foam hammer than they are getting Beats headphones. So it's been kind of a cool journey.
Yeah, I can buy whatever I need on Amazon, but equally, if I could have like Daniel on our team here on the recording here, if he was to vote for me in a team once a month thing, like props to me, that feels really good, and particularly if I can post about it because ego gets a little tiny bit bigger. So it's smart. I like the way you do it because a lot of the time it's have a Friday afternoon off, have a pizza, things like that. Material, it's gone before you even remember it, and doesn't mean a lot, doesn't motivate you. So that I think is smart, and of course I've never even worked with you fully, and I know it. Like it's become a thing. It's associated to the company that you work for. It's smart. So I like
Yeah.
that. Now I want to ask you about a little story. I got a few minutes to hear a bit of drama, create some tension here, so that everyone's pulse is listening raises go up a little bit. So tell me about. It could be either a mistake, could be something went wrong, could be a big problem, could be a big unexpected turn of events. Something happened in your career and you had to turn it around. You had to pull something out of the hat. What was it? How'd you do it? And what happened?
Man, I should have had you send me these earlier so I could have
This
really
is
good
why I
answers.
don't do
But
that.
no, let's see. I think big mistake in my career. There's a lot of them.
Coming here today.
Yeah, there's a lot of them both on the SDR front and the leadership front. I think there's probably more on the leadership front because leadership is all about making a bunch of mistakes and then learning how to fix them and how to overcome them. Um, I think the big mistake early in my career from a leadership perspective is, when you first come into leadership, you're a human and you look at your team, and obviously there are folks on the team that you gravitate more towards, that you get along with more on your personality. And I think early in my career, there was a lot of focus and favoritism on reps that were performing versus reps that were struggling. I think it's easier to give special treatment to reps that are doing better than other reps. But something that I've learned over the last 6 or 7 years of my leadership career is that we're as good as our worst player. And if everybody on the team feels like they receive the exact same amount of love help and everything from me, then ultimately they're going to give me 100%. But if they start feeling like they're mistreated and they're treated differently than other people, then it's really it's a slippery slope. So I think how I course corrected that is, I've tried to put all bias out in my leadership style, and try to spend time getting to know and understand every single person, what motivates them, what they're ultimately trying to get to, um, and then just spending time with people and talking to people and getting to know them, hearing them out, asking for feedback, all of that, and just kind of course correcting that way. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's what you get when you put me on the spot.
I'll do it more often then. So how did you know you'd done it? Did you feel cut adrift from certain people? Was it raised to you? Did somebody say like you never talk to me anymore? What was the thing that made you go, oh yeah, I'm doing that?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple ways. Like one, I saw it happening. I felt it in how they reacted to stuff. It was raised to me by certain employees. Hey, I've noticed this. This is something that I'm feeling, etc. Which is a tough pill to swallow. When you don't think you're doing any of that, and you don't want to think that you are doing that, but it's perception's reality. And so if that's how you're being perceived and that's what people are feeling, then you've got to kind of tap into that.
Gotcha, yeah. But particularly if it's kind of early on in your time as being a people manager or leader, if you want to use the word, I think you probably just felt some pressure, like I've got to achieve and I've got to this and that. So you go to the closest thing toward it, which is obviously your high performers, and you just make sure that nothing changes with them because that's just logic, isn't it? So I know what you mean. I think I've done similar, which has been annoying. But that said, how often in your career did you think about the steps that you've taken? Like when you were an SDR, you were I don't know if you were at college or if you had other jobs before that, but how much did you want to progress in the career ladder? Because that's been a major like obsession, to be honest, for me. I always knew I wanted to be a people manager because I want to help and coach. So to do that, you have to become in a position of leadership. So I'd already thought so much about it that I'd not half done the job, but I felt as though I had. So I think I shortcutted some of those things. Some of them you just have to do. But how much had you thought about that? Did you want to do this for the long term, or did it kind of come to you with progression and the ability?
Yeah, I love this question because if you asked me at different years of my life, you would have gotten crazy different answers. So in college, I wanted to be a dentist,
Dentist.
not a dentist anymore. Then I moved into an outside sales role and did that for a while. Thought that okay, I want to ultimately close big deals, do the whole thing. Got into an SDR role. Thought okay, I'm going to be an account executive in inside sales, but all through that time was looked at as a leader. So I was a co-manager at a shoe store that I ran in college. I was a football captain. Like there have been all these little parts in my career where I've been the team lead or the go-to guy on different things, and I'd always liked that. Um, and then when I got into as an SDR and I had real quick success really fast out of the gate, they put me in a team lead position and had me help onboard some of the reps as they were coming through. And I just fell in love with teaching people. And I think that leadership is it's a calling, and it's an itch that you can't you have to scratch. And it's like for me when people ask like what's your ultimate goal, it's it like every salesperson of course wants money because that's what, or you're not in sales, like that's why you go into sales is to make the extra money. So I've definitely coin operated, but it's watching guys like Towner Webster who came up through our program. I think he was a youth pastor at a church, got put on my team. I taught him sales, and he's grown all the way up to I think he's an account rep 3 now. He's been to President's Club a couple times. He just had his first child. Like just seeing these people build a career and knowing that I had a little tiny piece in that and watching it blossom is ultimately what fuels my cup. And so I think once I realized that I'd rather watch somebody else make President's Club than myself and help know that I had a part there, that's when I really realized that like this is ultimately where I need to end up.
Yeah, it's. I think it makes you a little bit more well-rounded. You've got to be. It can't be an accident if you're doing it for multiple people in different ways. Whereas I could, in theory, in the right place, if even the bang average salesperson that I am now, if in the right place, I could make President's Club if I did the right amount of work. In theory, I couldn't in a place where I had to have higher skill. So you have to bring the skill level up to different people in different ways, even in ways that you're weaker at than them. You've got to be able to help them. So that I
Yeah.
resonate quite a lot with, and I even remember, to be honest, the time when I thought, oh yeah, like I need to do that in my career. I helped a friend coach his football in the UK, so soccer. It was like literally under eight kids playing say playing football, like there were just a huddle, like a swarm of them in the middle of the pitch with the ball, kicking each other to death. But this one
Yeah.
kid was insanely good, and I took him to the side to help him because I said to him, "What are you not that good at?" And he never scored the goal. He was always everything but that. And we did some practice on that. We played a practice game straight after, and he just executed exactly what we did to a T, like poetry in motion. He carved the defense open, scored a stunning goal, and I can still feel like I just seen it in my head as I said that to you, and I can feel like if I could do that at my job, like even like once a week to feel half that, that would be so good. Like for the rest of my career, that'd be insane. So I know what you feel on that. Okay, cool. Story time over. I gave you my you gave me yours. So some quick fire questions. Are you ready? You scared? Intimidated? Something else?
Yeah. Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. Cool. What's the highest number of cold calls you've ever made in one day?
Ooh. I don't know. Gosh, it's been 7 or 8 years since then, but I would say probably between like 120, 140.
We'll call it 130 then. Okay, I think you're in the lead so
Yeah.
far. That's probably the highest we've had so far.
Really? Okay.
I think.
Nice. Times were
What?
different back in the day, you know?
It's been a bit more in the 60s to 80s at the moment, is what I'm hearing. So,
Yeah.
but it depends what job, like you said. So, there's that.
Hmm.
All right. Blended average. What across your career has been the average deal size that you've worked on? If you can think of something, I know it's kind of awkward to answer.
Hmm. Um, Average deal size. I'd probably say between 75 and 500K a month.
So let's say quarter mil.
Yeah,
Call it halfway,
probably.
just for all right.
Yeah.
100 being you are the goat. Rate your cold email skills out of 100.
So I'm ranking them based on your skills.
Um,
I'm comparing them to you.
if you want to try, I mean,
That's gonna be way lower than yours. Oh man, I'd like to say I'll give myself a an 80%. Beck Holland's gonna really be frustrated because I've been trained by Beck Holland on cold email outreach, which she came in and did our trained up on our team. But I mean, the difference with cold email is it's the scalability thing. That's the hard piece. Is I can easily write a really good personalized one-off email, but it's figuring out how to scale that out to 30, 40 emails. That takes a little bit more effort and thought into it, finesse.
fair enough. All right. What about calling?
Mm.
It better start with a
I think
nine.
yeah. You think a 9
I think it
for
starts with
me?
a nine for you.
I think it's pretty high. And it didn't used to be, but I think the more I've talked about it and thought about it and tried different things, I think it's probably gotten pretty high now. I used to run a thing. So a couple years ago, I used to run a little like call blitz with my team where I would have them create a list for me of people that hung up on them, were mean to them, said no to them, whatever. And I would call that list and they would call their list. And if I booked more meetings than the entire group, then they owed me lunch.
How
And
often did you get lunch?
if, well, actually, I'll just put myself on blast. There was one team that I had a couple years ago that I said I would run 2 laps around the RealPage office, which is huge. It's a huge office. And it was in December, and then Christmas came, and then it's just there were all these excuses that I had, and I didn't actually run it. But they actually beat me that day. because I jumped on the phone, I booked 2 meetings real quick right out of the gate, and then they booked 18 meetings before lunch.
Yikes.
So I said, "You guys are doing a great job. I'll just go ahead and bow
Yeah, I
out
can't
here."
compete with
But
that. I'll leave it right there.
yeah, I've won a few of them in my day though.
Fair play. I would love to hear some of the recordings, the occasional F off type conversation, and you're trying to say, hey, do you remember my colleague
Yeah.
Jane recorded yesterday? She had a really good message for you.
Yep.
So out of 100, what you got?
I'll do it. I'll do it 90.
All right, 90. What about your management skills out of 100?
Ooh, I feel like I'm going to be judged by all my past employees and current employees that are listening to this, so I'll give myself a 7.
All right. 7 or 70, just to be clear.
Oh, 70 out of 100, not 10.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was going to
70.
say, you're horrendous. If not, you're down bad. But okay, cool. Out of the two, you got social media to use or a video. You got to choose one to reach out to a prospect. Which would you pick?
Social all day. I would use a LinkedIn voicemail. I've gotten 2 of those in my leadership career, ever, and it's a blue play button, and it's super enticing not to click it.
Yeah, and I've had a couple. It's a bit novelty because you're like, what's that? The first time I had it, I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest. LinkedIn suck at telling you that they've done something, so I didn't actually know what it was. And I've sent a fair few. They pretty high response rate, I'd say, like probably multiples of an email, but it doesn't scale as the same. So that's still an interesting one, still underutilized. Next up, what time do you wake up in the morning?
As of late, 5 a.m. So
5
I
a.m.
try to knock out a workout before 6 because then I'm in dad mode until I log on.
This podcast so far, early as it is showing me down bad. I'm like hours after every single person, so this is not good. I'm gonna have to shape up a little bit.
Yeah,
but
well, I got
most
3
people
kids
are
under
parents,
5,
so
yeah.
All right, penultimate one. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream job?
Ultimately, I wanted to be one of those sports doctors on an NFL team. Like I wanted to be the guy that traveled with the team, and that's what I initially went to school for. And then I realized that it's 32 NFL teams, so that's a really small percentage of people that actually make it into those positions. And I was pretty good at selling, so I just kind of stuck with that.
Good choice. I admire it though. You wanted to be one of 30 people in the whole country, so good odds. But fair enough. Okay, man. Last one. And you can't say your boy Matt because he's actually coming on. But who should we have on the podcast after you that you could introduce for me?
Yeah, Matt Bachalski. That's going to be a great episode. Let's see. So many of them.
I've cut your legs.
I think
you were going to lean back on that straight away.
Yeah, I think two people that I would point to that have been pretty influential in my development in these types of positions. Malachi Threadgill, who's now VP of Demand Gen. Company escapes me now, but he was a ABM researcher at Forrester after I reported into him. So he has a ton of insight into the account based stuff and all of this kind of stuff. And then I think that the next person outside of Matt Buchalski would be John Comer, who was my director at GTT. John's an old school manager. He managed teams for a long time, and I learned a lot of great tactics. He's actually, I hope he listens to this because he's going to die laughing at this, but he is the only guy I've ever seen have a rep come in and resign with their letter of resignation, and he made them go and rewrite it before bringing it back to him.
Made him rewrite it.
So yeah, he said, this is not what you're going to turn into me right now. So you need to go rewrite this, Google how to do it and bring it back in here. And that was hilarious. So
good story. I'll have to ask him about it. If you don't mind doing a little intro, I'll have him on and I'll make sure I ask him an in-depth review of your personal performance.
Yeah, please do.
Cool. All right, man. Well, this has been really good. Thanks
Come on.
for coming on. I appreciate it, and thanks for a few recommendations for guests. We'll make sure we follow through on all of them. Before you jump, where can people find and follow you, and particularly if they want to join your team because you're always hiring, where can they do that?
Yeah, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. We are always hiring and always posting. We have 2 spots that we're looking to fill right now as we speak. But I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So that's the easiest way to find me.
Cool. All right. And with that, thank you very much, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, for getting all the way through another 10-point episode. We're flying through these. I've really enjoyed doing these so far. It's been good fun. I like the formats, and you haven't seen anything yet. Plenty more to come. So, with that, see you on the next one, and thanks for listening.